Hi, I'm George White, and this is What's Left.
When I said, hey, hey, what's wrong with you? I want to take you back tonight just to see you smile. You don't gotta be there, want to be more.
Hello, let me welcome on my co-hosts, Renee Barnett and Sean
Hi,
Halsall.
George.
Hi, Renee.
Hi, George. Hi, Renee. How you all doing?
Hey, good. And you?
Yeah, not bad. It's been a wild week after the announcement from our last podcast and all the chaos I seem to have caused, but it's been broadly positive. Yeah, it's been good.
And for those who might have missed the last broadcast, would you kind of explain what your announcement was all about?
Yeah, so I've been a member of the Labour Party for the last 10 years, activist, local councillor. I was actually deputy leader of the Transport Committee until about 25 minutes ago when I had an email asking for me pass back. But yeah, I made the decision to leave the Labour Party and sort of stand on as an independent on a socialist platform because I believe people deserve better than what's on offer at the moment. So yeah, that was my announcement.
Wow. Yeah, that was pretty surprising when I heard it. I wasn't aware of it in advance, so I was quite surprised. But it's interesting that you've chosen to remain independent rather than to affiliate with another party. Is that because you don't see right now another party that is in line with what you're trying to accomplish for people and work? And
I think when you join any party, you sort of water down. You're going to have to compromise somewhere. I think as an independent, I can represent the people of the town I've always lived in, was born in, and effectively represents the town on my own sort of backs without anyone sort of disciplining me for saying things that the rest of the party don't agree with.
yeah. Of course, in the United States, socialism is a dirty word. We don't really know what it means. That's why. And it's been used as a cudgel, the socialists, the communists. And but basically what you're talking about are programs to help the average person. And
yeah, I mean, I'm sure we can go into this more as we go on over the next few weeks and months. But yeah, I'm a big believer in workers owning the businesses that create the wealth. I mean, worker ownership's absolutely everything. If we're going to sort of shake free the shackles of exploitation from big businesses, then it's got to be through ownership.
Yep.
Yeah. So who have we got this week, George?
We've got Gawain Little from the GFTU. He's the General Secretary of the GFTU, which is a trade union federation in the UK. So welcome on, Gawain.
Hi, Gawain.
Hi,
Gawain.
fantastic. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, mate. Yeah. Yeah.
So Gawain, just sort of in brief, if you can. So from memory, I think the GFTU goes back quite a long history as a trade union federation, and from memory, I think the GFTU was founded because when the new unions were created, the radical unions, the non-skilled trade unions, they weren't allowed to be in the TUC, and so the GFTU had to be formed for the new unions. Is that correct?
Do you know what? It's not quite, George, but there are lots of myths about the foundation of the GFTU. But let me set the record straight. So we were founded 125 years ago. So this is our 125th anniversary. So in 1899, and we were actually founded by the TUC. We were a project of the TUC. It was around the same time as the initial discussions which were taking place around the founding of the Labour Representation Committee, which eventually became the Labour Party. And the thinking at the time was that the trade union movement organised then in the TUC around a loose parliamentary committee needed both a political wing, which became the Labour Party, and an industrial wing, which was to be the General Federation of Trade Unions. So in 1899, at a meeting in Manchester, the TUC signed off the formation of the GFTU. It held its first conference in July of that year and has been going for 125 years since. Obviously, over that time, it's played a number of different roles, but our key role now is as a federation of mainly specialist unions. So we have 28 trade union affiliates, around 600,000 affiliated members, and we carry out a range of campaigning and support work for our affiliates and for the wider labour movement.
And are there any of the larger trade unions affiliated, Gawain?
So most GFTU affiliates are small, medium-sized trade unions, many of them specialists in a particular field or particular area, but GFT unions are all each unique. So they're most of them are TUC affiliates, but some are not. Some are affiliated to the Labour Party, others are not. We're a broad church of different unions, but coming together in common purpose around three key ideals, which are solidarity, education, and unity in action.
That's excellent. So we were talking a little bit before you came on about strike maps. Can you talk us through what strike maps is for those across the water who might not have heard of it, and those in the UK, Gawain?
Yeah, so the GFTU recently, the end of last year, announced a partnership with Strike Map. Strike Map's a grassroots organisation. It is only a few years old, and its purpose is to map all industrial action taking place in Britain and Ireland. The map is hosted online, so if you search Strike Map online, you'll be able to find the website there, and people can find out what strikes are taking place right across the country. You can put in your postcode, find your nearest picket line, go and show solidarity, and you can also use it to send messages of support, written messages, video messages, etc. Its purpose really is to build and amplify the strike action that's taking place and to bring together that layer of activists that are leading action at a grassroots level right across the country. For GFTU, which carries out a lot of educational work in particular, maybe I'll talk more about that later, it was an ideal partnership because Strike Map is a very new initiative using the latest technology to connect up grassroots activists right across the union movement, and GFTU is an established organisation with a long history and a broad trade union education programme. By bringing those two together, what we hope to do is take those new activists who've attended their first picket line, participated in their first strike, and bring them right into the heart of the movement so they can make it their movement and help shape that movement.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think it has stood out that before, perhaps, I mean, I was on strike in 2017, I think, before Strike Maps was around. And I know the workplace after I'd left has been on strike since. And the sort of support, you can see the tangible difference where people are using these tools to express solidarity, where we have people winding the windows down, screaming at us to get back to work. The group afterwards, a few years, had people walking down with big cups of donuts and coffees and stuff for people. So it's definitely made a difference.
I think there's been a huge amount of public support for trade union action recently. I think partly because people see with the cost of living crisis, with the absolute mess this government have made of our economy, people see that actually taking action to defend your rights is not only legitimate, but it becomes necessary when you have a government, when you have employers that aren't willing to sit down, to negotiate, to agree decent terms and conditions, then that action is necessary. And I think the public at large sees that, and hence the growing support we've had for strike action in this country.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think as well, it sort of stands out that perhaps because it's a different trade union, you wouldn't know, and there could be a strike happening on your doorstep round the corner from your house, and you wouldn't know unless you sort of stumbled across it, drove past it. And I know that some of our shop stewards at work, when the RMT were taking their action, because it was not just the main railway station in Preston, but there was also a signals office further up in Preston that was also a picket line. So they were making sure to call in there to offer their solidarity, because it wasn't the one that was getting all the sort of public support in the town centre.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of the things that's really exciting about Strike Map. It is the most accurate record of strikes right across the country, meaning you can find a strike you might not have heard about, you might not have been in touch with. And of course, it's entirely worker run. It's not a government department. It's not a separate NGO. It is organized by worker activists in the trade union movement and volunteers to help amplify those strikes and to support those taking action.
Well, I think you were telling me going off the air that in the United States, Cornell University has some sort of a tracking system. You know, obviously, if I see that there's a strike going on in Ireland and I'm sitting in California, I'm not going to be able to go there. But it would be kind of nice if there was some kind of way to connect all of them, because you could send emails, you could, you know, send little films and expressions of solidarity and that sort of thing. And I wonder if that would be helpful at all to what you're doing there. If you had, you know, more people expressing their opinions or expressing solidarity with whatever movement's going on there in the UK.
Absolutely. Whether listeners in the US or indeed right across the world can access that website, and as well as, obviously, it may be a little far to travel to support your to support the pickets in person. There are tools on there where you can send either via email or by recording short video, just using a tool on the website directly through your phone. You can send a short video of solidarity, and it makes such a difference. You know, I know this from taking strike action myself. It makes such a difference to know that the support, the solidarity is out there. It's all about connecting up our movement, isn't it? Whether that is locally, whether it's nationally, whether it's internationally.
That's right. Yeah, I would think that would be really good. And also, you know, sort of to the powers that be, to see that there's much broader support for workers than just those within the country. That, you know, this is a worldwide thing, and I mean, because it seems like, you know, the world has kind of had things flipped on the wrong side with, you know, what in the United States was labeled trickle down economics. Well, that doesn't work. You know, it does not work. And it would seem like, you know, with the expression of people's dissatisfaction with that sort of system, you know, it would seem like it would be an advantage to know that, you know, people worldwide are watching.
Absolutely. And especially as we face so many of the same challenges. You know, you talk about trickle-down economics, a favorite phrase of Reagan's. And of course, at the same time as the Reagan administration was tearing things up in the US, we had the Thatcher government here, absolutely destroying the social fabric of our society, something which, you know, as a movement, we've yet to fully recover from. It's 40 years this year since the opening of the miners' strike, one of the great battles in this country during that period, and one which unfortunately was a defeat for the trade union movement. The US was undergoing a really similar series of battles at the time, and I think it's really important that where we face the same challenges, that we stand in solidarity with each other. And so any support we can give each other right across the world, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, I think as well, with the nature of capital now being much more global and money being moved around everywhere, that's just a really good point. We need to get better at working as an international movement as well. Again, remember some of them sort of lessons that Dockers learned with the world's longest picket line and stuff back in the day. I think global supply chains are sort of the weak underbelly of capitalism, and there for the taking if we organise ourselves properly.
Absolutely. And international solidarity work has long been a part of the GFTU's history and traditions, right from its very founding and right up to the present day. Of course, I think probably one of the key issues now internationally in the world is the question of what's happening in Gaza. the Israeli assault on Gaza, and the need to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people. So I think there's a whole range of international solidarity causes that the trade union movement needs to connect on, must connect on, whether that is standing up for the rights of our members, for working conditions, or whether it is standing for the rights under international law of people to live free of occupation and free of the absolutely devastating bombing and assault that's taken place at the moment in Gaza. So yeah, international solidarity is core to what we do as a movement.
Absolutely.
I think as well, where it was mentioned about the sort of global supply chain now, where everything is integrated, but it's also created a huge, left itself a huge vulnerability, because with things like just-in-time manufacturing, or the world's warehouse is now the container ship and the road haulage. That things have to arrive in a certain timescale, in a certain order, and they're coming from all over, the four corners of the globe. So they've left themselves widely open to the vulnerabilities of having that global and sort of methodically managed supply chain, haven't they?
Absolutely, and that means there are real opportunities for workers when we can organise across borders, when we can organise together in solidarity and collaboration, and taking part in targeted campaigns to link up the struggles of workers with the same employer across different countries, as we've seen recently with Amazon. Really exciting what's taking place in Britain now around the organising in Coventry and elsewhere in Amazon warehouses, but of course linking as well to the success of the Amazon Labour Union in the US, and in solidarity with many other organisers in Amazon worldwide. Those are the kind of challenges which need an internationally linked trade union movement in order to progress them.
Absolutely.
Gawain, so quite a number of years ago, when a long while ago, when I was a young member, I was involved in a number of the GFTU run weekend young members schools. Are the young members schools still going in the GFTU?
They are, yes. So we now run a young members weekend twice a year. So the next one's coming up in the second weekend of May. It'll be running from the 10th to the 12th of May in our hotel and training centre in Quorn Grange in the East Midlands. They're fantastic events. They're run by young members for young members. So the whole program is organised and devised by the young members, with support from the GFTU, with calling in guest speakers, experienced tutors, and so on. But it's a fantastic program for young workers starting out their journey in the trade union movement, or even becoming more experienced. We run 2 a year now, so that one is aimed at people who are relatively new to trade unionism, and one is aimed at young workers who maybe are already a workplace rep or already involved in a local committee and want to take that next step. But they're fantastic events and fantastic opportunities, bringing young people together. They are the future of our movement. I know it's a little bit of a cliche to say it, but actually, if we don't invest in the education and development of new and young activists coming into the movement, there won't be a future for this movement. So we have to put our energies into that, I believe. So they're still going strong. Yeah.
Well, I can also endorse that as well, because quite a few of the young members that went through the at the time when I went on them have gone on to be shop stewards, and when they've ceased to be shop stewards, have remained active within the movement as well. So
I think as well, Gawain, with the sort of demographics in this country, they're not just the future, they're the present at the moment. It's where we see the most exciting sort of organising. It tends to be in much younger sort of workplaces. So I do a lot of work with the veterinary union. Tends to be a younger demographic, and they're doing absolutely incredible things there. So they got the first recognition agreement ever in the country. Are doing very, very well against a very hostile employer. There's stuff in hospitality, although it's not going as quick as I'd like to see, but they're very, very passionate and active in and great trade unionists who are there for the right reasons. It's brilliant to see.
Absolutely. There are so many exciting things going on in the movement. And partly, obviously, there's the investment in organising and the support for those initiatives. But alongside that, I believe has to go education and training, that investment in developing the activists who are leading those struggles, new and young activists, but also people further on in their trade union journey. It's really, really important that we continue to invest in developing those skills. So a big part of what GFTU does through our associated educational trust is run a broad range of courses. The Young Members Development Weekend is one of those that takes place twice a year, but we've got a huge range of other courses, from workplace reps courses and health and safety courses through to courses in organising, equalities courses, a huge range of different things, all aimed around the same purpose, which is, I believe, when people first come into the trade union movement, they need to find a home, a place, somewhere that is their space to shape. And all our courses are designed with that in mind. The idea is this isn't just us imparting wisdom or skills or knowledge for the future, but it's also about giving people an opportunity to explore, to develop their own critical consciousness, their own leadership skills from the very beginning. So that what we're hoping to do is to educate the future leaders of the trade union movement at all levels, from the workplace up.
Yeah, I mean, I work in trade union education. Most of the viewers will know, have heard me bang on about that. Couldn't agree with you more. I think the biggest thing we as trade union educators impart onto the reps is confidence in themselves. I think most people have got it in them. It's very instinctive. If you've stood up to be a rep, you instinctively know where the problems are and how we solve that. I mean, it's just giving them that confidence. And I think that's sort of a problem across the working class, is a lack of confidence in ourselves. It's the doff the cap to someone who's been to Eton, because they must know what's going on and be able to run the country, rather than we can do this ourselves. We're a very, very sort of knowledge-filled and skillful class of people. I think the confidence issue is by far the most important thing we instill in our reps.
Absolutely. And I think there are key ways of building that confidence that sometimes we neglect if we're not careful. So one of them, I think, is having a really good grounding in trade union and labour history, understanding the victories that the working class has won in the past, understanding the times when it has led these heroic struggles, can give confidence as to how we move forward. You know, the old saying, if we don't understand our past, we don't know where we're going into our future. So I think that investment in really developing an understanding of labour history and the struggles of the past is absolutely key. Secondly, I think economics, political economy is absolutely crucial. If you're going to lead, if you're going to understand and build that confidence that we really can run this society in a better way than it's being run now, that we really can change the way in which our economy runs, then I believe workers need that understanding of how the system works, of how exploitation works, of what's happening to them at work. And then finally, I think the third area is developing those critical thinking skills through political education, so that you've got an understanding of power and how that shapes the struggles that we're involved in. And I think you combine those three things and you give working people a confidence to start to take control over their own lives. And fundamentally, I think that's what the trade union movement is about, bringing working people together collectively to take back control over their own lives and to reshape society.
I don't know if you've had the same experience, but it seems to me like, from where I sit in the United States, that the young people are just primed and ready for this. It's like they're already, it seems to me like, in a better mindset than maybe we were in the past, less likely to just accept things that are not fair, and actually able to see those things better, and certainly much more inclusive. You know, they've got no problem with diversity at all, of any kind, whether it's, you know, race, or whether it's neurodiversity, or any of these things. It seems like they're sitting in a position right now where if, we just give them a few more tools, they're going to take care of it, because it seems like they're already in the right mindset, at least from where I sit. I got two young people still at my house, and they have a lot of friends, and I just noticed how they're all much more supportive of each other, especially of each other's so shortcomings that other people might see, much more understanding and much more about the group rather than individuals. Do you find that in your working with young people?
I think there's definitely a shift taking place, and I'm really, really hopeful about the future in light of that. I was born in the early 1980s. I grew up in Liverpool, and there was, in many ways, a highly charged political atmosphere growing up. But then you had the defeats of the miners' strike, the teachers' strikes of the 80s, the Wapping dispute, so many other disputes where the class was set on the back foot. And in Britain again, thinking of that Reagan Thatcher period, we had a prime minister who said there is no such thing as society. Her stated aim was to tear apart the social fabric that binds us together. She saw it, that our country as a collection of individuals and families, but no society, no collectivity. You had the sell-off of communally owned council housing. We're now seeing the breakup, privatization of our schools, of our NHS. We've seen all of those things happen that break, if you like, those collective bonds. But I do feel like the tide's turning on that we're coming out of that period. And once again, people are seeing that actually, if you want change, you only get change by coming together collectively. Those bonds that unite us, black and white, men and women, that unite us across all those divides in all our diversity, that unite us on a class basis. I think people are starting to see that, and that's really encouraging, makes me really hopeful for the future and the kind of future we can build as a movement.
Yeah.
I think as well, it's quite refreshing that there is moves towards trying to identify and educate the next generation of trade unionists, because I think it's sometimes too easy to look at the thing that's directly in front of you and go, today's problem, and by the time you've looked up, 10 years have gone past, and there isn't the next generation of trade unionists coming behind you, because they've kept, I don't know, like you said, with the miners' strike and the series of different disputes where we've been coshed and we've been kept coshed, so that we've never had that respite, that breathing space to sort of look up and go, well, all of today's priorities are done. Can we think about a legacy almost,
Absolutely. And this is a challenge for us as a movement, isn't it? We have to fight the new anti-union laws, the minimum service levels. We have to fight against this corrupt and inept government. We have to fight against the cost of living crisis that we face right now. But at the same time, we always have to have one eye to the future. If we're not looking 10 years ahead constantly, we fail ourselves as a movement. So that's what we seek to do. Our education program is about building and developing for the future, the trade union movement, a future that I fundamentally believe is bright.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. If it's not bright, there's probably no future unless you've got trade unionists tackling the climate crisis, because that is only going to come with working people on board, with a workers' transition, and sort of decarbonising our economy and making sure workers aren't left behind. Automation and AI and stuff like that. I don't know who they think is going to be left to buy all the garbage they create when no one's working anymore, but it's fundamentally, there's going to have to be a dramatic shift. And again, it comes back to ownership. I think we've had people on talking about AI in the past. Salim was on a couple of times. And it's if we own it, we might have better lives. We might have more free time at home. We might be paid properly. If we allow capital to own it, it's going to be used, as they do with all technology, to drive up profit and push us down.
Absolutely. And I think the trade union movement grasping AI is going to be one of the huge questions for us over the next few years. Just the other week, we announced a new partnership with an organization called BOM, which is right at the cutting edge of using AI technology to understand what people are thinking, to understand opinion. Of course, this is key to us as trade union organizers. What we're hoping with the partnership between the GFTU and BOM is that we can bring the latest developments in AI into the service of the trade union movement of working people, so that we can use that technology on our side to organize and to build, rather than wait for it to be used against us.
That's really interesting.
That
Well,
is.
I think it's going to be instrumental, because I think most people saw the early the early internet and the early social media as sort of a liberating thing that could possibly be a good organizing tool to bring workers wherever in the world together. And then you ended up having things like Cambridge Analytica and those types of mass data being used to do exactly the opposite of that, to frig elections and to union boards and to do all those sorts of things.
Absolutely. It's all about whose hands it's in, isn't it? The technology itself is neutral. It's the uses to which we put it. Right. So ensuring the trade union movement takes a lead on that is key. Absolutely key.
Absolutely. I'm very aware you're going to have to leave us in a minute, Gawain, but is there anything you want to shout out to our audience? Anything you want to promote while you're here? Obviously, we've talked about Strike Map. Anything else?
Absolutely. I would just say the key in all of these things, whether we're looking at the partnership with BOM, whether work we're doing with Strike Map, or the education work that we deliver through our educational trust, trade union work is all about building alliances and about building partnerships. And at the General Federation of Trade Unions, that's absolutely what we are keen to do. We're constantly on the lookout for how we can develop that next edge, that next bit for working people, so that we as a movement can be stronger. At the end of the day, we are one part of the trade union movement, and our role is to make that movement stronger and keep building it and developing it. So that's what we'll keep doing.
That's fantastic, Gawain. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and hopefully we can get you on in the future to talk about some of the stuff that GFTU are up to.
Yeah, that would be great. And thanks very much for the invite to join you today.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much, Gawain. Take care.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well,
it's really interesting.
It is. I love that Strike Map app. That's what got me thinking.
So where do you think the next generation of trade unionists are coming from then?
Oh gosh. That would be a good question for Sean. I really don't know. I mean, I think that the younger population in general is certainly more in line with the ideals that, trade unionists generally hold. I'm not sure about the leaders, and I'm just starting to learn so much more about the movements against trade unions in the United States. And I would imagine there's some of that going on, especially with these big international companies like Amazon over in the UK as well. But as far as, I'm not sure. Did you have an idea about that already, George, when you asked me that question?
No, a completely open-ended question.
Oh,
but
all right.
if we can tap the resource, it will be the future, won't it?
Yeah, it would be. Yeah,
I think any emerging sector is gonna need heavy organising, but I think the generation coming into the workplace now, just with the amount of struggle, are probably better primed at understanding and seeing the RMT on strike and seeing their teachers go out on strike over the last few years. I think they're better primed than sort of ever to see where the answers are within the trade union movement. Where generations sort of before, where I got into the workplace, I think out of all the people I grew up with, I probably was the only one in a union. Well, it's very different now, I think. When we see the rise in hospitality, in our recent history, like TGI Fridays, McDonald's, and stuff like that, organising the mixed strikes, and Lauren Townsend and Milton Keynes leading very much on the TGI Fridays stuff. we're seeing a new wave of younger activists coming into the movement and leading and picking it up. And I know, Rene, you mentioned there that you don't know who the leaders are. And the beautiful thing about this movement is there doesn't need to be any leaders. It sort of comes through on its own. People come through on their own. And I think James Martin's just joined us.
We have a surprise guest tonight with us this evening.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I just thought I'd say hello and just wishing everyone well.
How are you doing, James?
Yeah, not too bad. Thank you very much. I hope the show's going really well.
Excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah. I did want to bring up something, and James, maybe you have a comment about this. But I was speaking off the air earlier about the United Auto Workers unionization campaign in the United States. There have been now 6 governors, all of red states or Republican states, who have banded together to fight unionization in their states. Now, I could understand, I guess, how the argument they're making with the automobile companies that we can keep your costs down if we don't allow this. I don't understand why people in their states would back this at all. But what they're saying is that the UAW is using scare tactics to scare people into wanting unions, when I think we could probably flip that on its head and say that the government is using scare tactics to scare people away from unions. Do you have anything to say to the people of Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas?
I think that the notion of trade unionism is one that is fundamental. I mean, the first thing to say is, well, perhaps in press headlines, where we should really see unions deliver decent pay increases for all, benefits to the local economy, rather than what we see driven from the reality, which is poverty wages. We're just seeing last week, actually, the damning report on poverty in the United Kingdom. Something that was buried, actually, with arguments around what was on a sports T-shirt. But reality of the situation is unions are there, buying off workers, and where workers are they're in solidarity with the universal right of collective bargaining. You see things like the fundamental right not to die at work or to be poisoned, or things like this. So, yeah, that would be my message to those people in those states, that the fear mongering from your employer. Because their CEO needs another story.
Wow, we can't hear you. Can you hear?
We have lost James's sound.
We've lost James's audio. Oh, maybe he'll come back. Probably had to reboot.
I think as well the idea that these companies whose prime purpose is to make money at all costs is seems to go out of the window. They all of a sudden become really benevolent and have your best interest in heart when they're putting up billboards to get you to vote against union recognition or spend public money to do the same.
It was really interesting seeing.
There you are, James.
Hi everyone. Apologies, I just wanted to say hello. I had just saw a message to come and say hi to everyone. But the only other thing I would argue is that of workplace democracy. And if we must focus on the southern states that you've referred to, Renee, well, democracy is something that is fundamental, so I'm led to believe, to the identity of the United States. Now, your boss doesn't come and ask you what you want as a pay rise. Instead, your union does, and it does ask you what you want and what we should be striving for, and you get a vote and a say in this. It's industrial democracy with benefits for all. That's the core notion of trade unionism, and disappointing is it that we see such tactics promoted by the bosses, who, as I was saying, apologies before I just lost signal there, which was because you're because the CEO wants another story on their house or another golf club to own, that you pay for it. It works better in all ways when you consider the solidarity of workers around the world. They've achieved things that are incredible. In history, you can make an argument for the pyramids. In more recent times, the right to paid leave. Things that are enjoyed in Europe that are absent in the United States.
Oh my God.
What is the reason for this? Why do you think in Europe, we enjoy paid annual leave? Why we enjoy decent healthcare regimes, mostly, and things like this. It's because the profit motives, been displaced by the actions of workers, and all of this.
What about the argument that, okay, let's say these automobile makers will say, well, if we have to spend more money because we're implementing unions, then we're going to have to raise the price of our products. And so that sort of speaks to the general public that, oh, I'm going to have to pay more for my car if I back the idea of a union.
Well, what I would say to that is, sort of twofold. One, lots of threats by employers to shut down production. It's never due to the fact that they've recognised a union. I would call it piss poor planning. If they haven't put into their budget the notion that workers deserve a pay rise, because at the end of the day, wealth doesn't trickle down from the top, it's generated from the bottom and goes upwards.
That's right.
And that's just the reality of this situation. If they can't plan for things like this, then the word is exploitation. Now, if you're
we already know, as they cry poor, they're all collecting huge salaries, bonuses, and crazy profits. So it's just a matter of redistribution of a little bit of that. And how much money do you really need?
Well,
how many millions of dollars?
How comfortable are people working for an exploitative company or purchasing products from them? And I suppose the second point I would make, well, you see, it's funny that in Europe and in countries that have, a tradition of trade unionism, you can make an argument even for Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, where a tradition once existed in the United States, that where you have unions working, most people can afford the increased price. For example, you find in the United States that there was a very strong union. Let me just ask Renee, in the 60s and 70s, how many people had to work in a family unit? Was it everyone, including the kids, having to work totally to support everything? Or was it, in fact, one person? Now, that's, within the collective memory. So what's changed? Is it really the fact that, companies have increased a cost of something or whatever they want to sell to the press? Or is it the fact that they've become more greedy and don't want to share? It's almost like only child syndrome, apart from come large with just the word exploitation. And that is the reality.
The backwards thinking to it as well is, if you're not paying people enough money to meet their basic needs, how have they got excess money to go and buy the stuff you're producing anyway? It's, if you pay people properly, then they can afford all the things that you're selling, and you may sell a few more units. I think that's the argument that you see in Scandinavian countries now with Tesla and the ongoing dispute there, that they believe workers should be able to afford the stuff they build. I mean, as much as I disagree with almost everything Henry Ford was about, that's one thing he understood, that if your workers can afford to buy the stuff you produce, you're probably going to keep yourself in business for quite some time.
I think there's been this lament of I remember it being talked about in the United States, the sort of demise of some of the restaurant chains because the millennials aren't dining at them, but there seems to be no recognition of the fact that if you are paying poverty wages, one of the first things that has to go is discretionary things like dining at a restaurant.
Running out, exactly.
I mean, the other argument that's certainly salient in the United States is this notion of the dead peasant insurance policy, where employers take out a life insurance policy on you in the hope that you die in service so that they can make profit out of your death. Now, I would just suggest where's the vested interest here then? Is it looking after workers' safety and welfare and care in the workplace? Or does it become in the hopes that, some might die, so again, people can make a profit? By the way, that's illegal. It's a legal practice in a lot of states. It's certainly illegal in most countries around the world. Doesn't stop it happening, which is the next argument I would make. The Volkswagen emission scandal did not emerge because of an honest employer. It came from the unions within that employer. And so the notion of improved health and safety, and again the right not to die, is again one of the very core values of trade unionism.
Absolutely.
Right not to die. That should be a priori, but it's not. Oh my.
And again, it shows how far we've sort of gone back when books like The Ragged Trousered Philanthropist that we were talking about before we came on are completely relevant now, probably more relevant than they have been for the last 60, 70 years, but they make perfect sense now to the sort of way we've organized our economy and society and the way which we work. It's absolutely baffling that we're sort of back to 100 years ago where we started.
Yeah, if you don't pick up a day's work as a house painter, jobbing painter, painting a house, you go under. And what have we got now? 0 hours contracts. Yeah,
absolutely. And the press just blaming working people, immigrants. It's a new scapegoat every sort of 6 months we go on this cycle. Yeah. Is it trans people this month? Is it immigrants coming on boats that are the scary enemy? Is it the working class people claiming too much benefits, when instead we should be looking at the people who own these press sort of operations, your Murdochs? These are the issues.
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch is probably got the most sort of blame on his hands for the demise of working class people globally. And it's not even just a UK or America thing. It's this global project to just keep people on their knees.
And I just want to, further that. And the way in which we combat these oligarchs is not through, any sort of individual noise. Yes, we all, can stop buying into the Murdoch spin, etc. But instead, it's through collective action. We know that we can achieve more. I can't achieve as much as we, and that's the point. Friends, can I just say thank you for inviting me on, even as brief as it has been. But it's good to at least show my face, and I really must go work calls. But look after yourself, everyone.
Always a pleasure having you, James, and we'll have to get you on soon to talk about some of the stuff you're up to down in the southwest.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Absolutely.
Right.
Take care, comrade.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh my goodness, that was a surprise to me. That was fun. Someone just showing up. I wonder who else is going to show up.
Absolutely. It's been a great show. It's been a great show tonight, comrades, with the surprise guest and Gawain.
Yeah. That was really good. I'm really jazzed by that whole strike map thing. I think that is such a cool thing, and I'm going to have to look into what Gawain was saying about that Cornell University model that they sort of used. I wonder if it's as convenient as an app would be, or if there is an app associated with it. I'll have a look and see, and maybe can tell people about it on the next show in case they want to.
Absolutely.
I think as well. I just wrote something down. I think it was when we spoke to Gawain just before we went on air as well. But he said about GFTU having solidarity, education, and unity in action as sort of their mantra, if you want. And it sort of calls back to educate, agitate, and organize. And I think one of the sort of core purposes of what's left is to do exactly that, and it's sort of refreshing that that is being put into action in throughout the trade union movement, and hopefully we can do our little bit to contribute to that education and agitation.
Absolutely, yeah. That was always the idea of this, was to talk about some issues which others are talking about, but I don't think in the sort of long form way we do, and working class history that's so not talked about in the UK and as we've found out in the United States. And I think we can have some interesting. I think we have had some very interesting conversations and guests and talked about ideas that probably aren't given the sort of room that they should have. Absolutely.
Exactly. And I'm hoping that our listeners will send us their ideas on what they'd like to hear us discuss, or anyone that they would like for us to have on. And it's right here on the screen, what'sleftradio@gmail.com. If you have a suggestion for us, please send it on over and we'll see what we can do.
Absolutely.
Got our social media up as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Twitter, What's Left Radio. And if you want to support us, you can find us on patreon.com/What's Left Radio.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Been an absolute pleasure, guys. So, George, what's left?
Well, I think to say what's left is that everybody in the movement needs to identify somebody who they see that spark in, and they need to encourage that person and to nurture that person, and to bring fan that spark into a raging flame that brings forth that next generation of trade unionists to carry on the fight.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you, George, and thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers.